The military transport ship that carried Marcus and Kira to the Exodus construction site was cramped and uncomfortable, but neither of them complained. They had packed only what they could carry and left everything else behind. Their apartment, their furniture, the life they had built together. All of it was gone now, and there was no going back. Marcus held Kira's hand as they approached the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Through the viewport they could see the construction site, and Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. The Exodus was even more impressive in person than it had been in the schematics. The ship stretched for 5 kilometers, and its rotating habitat rings caught the distant sunlight. Construction drones swarmed around the vessel like insects, and supply ships came and went, constantly bringing materials from mining operations throughout the solar system. "Welcome to Exodus Station," the pilot announced over the intercom. "Current population 32,000 and growing." The transport docked smoothly, and Marcus and Kira went through the security processing. They were given identification badges and assigned quarters in the residential section. Their new home was small but functional, with 2 sleeping areas and a common room. Kira would attend the station school with other children whose families were part of the project. Marcus would report to Engineering Bay 7. They unpacked their few belongings, and Marcus walked Kira to her first day of school. The school was bright and welcoming, and Kira seemed nervous but excited. "I will be fine, Dad," she said when she saw his worried expression. "Go save the world." Marcus hugged her and then made his way to the engineering bay. The bay was massive and filled with equipment and half-assembled machinery. Engineers and technicians worked at various stations, and the air hummed with energy and purpose. A woman approached Marcus, and she had the bearing of someone used to command. "You must be Marcus Webb," she said. "I am Patricia Stone, chief engineer of this project. Victor Kane speaks very highly of you. I hope you live up to the reputation." Marcus nodded. "Just point me where you need me, ma'am." Patricia smiled slightly. "I like you already. Let us start with the quantum slipstream drive. We ran a test firing yesterday and experienced a 17% power loss. I need you to figure out why." The slipstream drive was technology that humanity had only recently mastered. It had been reverse-engineered from alien debris found near Jupiter. The drive allowed ships to slip between normal space and a dimension called slip space, achieving faster than light travel, without the deadly radiation of older systems. Marcus spent the next 2 weeks practically living in the drive compartment. He studied every component and ran countless simulations. He consulted with physicists whose explanations went far over his head. But gradually he began to understand the problem. The quantum crystals that powered the drive had microscopic imperfections. These imperfections caused a resonance cascade in the field generators, which led to power loss. The solution came to Marcus in the middle of the night. If he introduced a counter-resonance through the secondary coils, he could cancel out the cascade before it began. He implemented the fix and called Patricia to observe the next test. The slipstream drive powered up smoothly, and the readings showed 103% efficiency. Patricia stared at the display and then turned to Marcus with a look of amazement. "You did it," she said. 2 weeks. "My team has been working on this problem for 3 months, and you solved it in 2 weeks. It was just a matter of looking at it from a different angle," Marcus said. Patricia clapped him on the shoulder. "You are being modest. I am putting you in charge of the entire propulsion division. We need your kind of thinking everywhere." "Ma'am, I have only been here 2 weeks," Marcus protested. "And you have already accomplished more than most people do in a year," Patricia replied. "Do not make me regret this promotion." Marcus accepted the new position and found himself managing a team of 50 engineers. It was challenging work, but he discovered he had a talent for leadership. He listened to his team's ideas and encouraged creative problem-solving. He never asked anyone to work harder than he worked himself. The days blended together in a blur of technical challenges and solutions. Marcus would work 12 or 14-hour shifts and then go home to have dinner with Kira. She would tell him about her classes and her new friends. He would tell her about the progress on the ship. They were building a new life together, even as they prepared for the possibility of losing their old world. 6 weeks into Marcus's time on the Exodus, the secret about the Devourers finally leaked to the public. Someone in one of the governments had talked, or maybe a journalist had pieced together enough clues. Whatever the reason, the truth was out, and the response was exactly what everyone had feared. Panic spread across Earth like wildfire. People rioted in the streets. Government struggled to maintain order. Millions of people tried desperately to find passage on the Exodus or the other evacuation ships being built in secret around the solar system. Marcus watched the news feeds with growing horror. Cities were burning. Society was tearing itself apart. The thin layer of civilization was peeling away to reveal the frightened animals underneath. Victor Kane called an emergency meeting of all senior staff. Marcus attended along with Patricia and the other department heads. Victor looked exhausted, but his voice was firm. "We are accelerating the timeline," he announced. "The ship launches in 2 weeks. I do not care if every system is at 100%. We need to get operational before someone decides to take the Exodus by force." 2 weeks, Patricia said in disbelief. "Sir, we still have major systems offline. Life support for sections 19 through 27. Weapons arrays. Shield generators. We need at least 2 more months." "You have 2 weeks," Victor said. "Make it work." The next 14 days were the most intense of Marcus's life. He and his team worked 18-hour shifts with only brief breaks for sleep. The propulsion systems had to be brought to full operational status. The slipstream drive, the fusion engines, the maneuvering thrusters, everything had to work perfectly or the ship would be a sitting target. Marcus pushed himself and his team to the absolute limit. They performed what seemed like miracles, getting systems online that should have taken months to complete. Other departments were doing the same. Life support was patched together using backup systems and creative solutions. The weapons arrays were brought partially online. The shield generators were tested and retested. On launch day, Marcus stood on the observation deck with Kira watching as the last supply ships departed. The docking clamps released with a series of metallic clangs that echoed through the hull. The Exodus began to move slowly at first and then with increasing speed as the engines reached full power. "Are we ready, Dad?" Kira asked quietly. Marcus looked at his daughter and then at the massive ship around them. He thought about all the people depending on systems he had helped build. He thought about Earth behind them and the unknown dangers ahead. "We are as ready as we are going to be," he said. It was the only honest answer he could give. Marcus spent 2 weeks in the hospital ship recovering from his injuries, and during that time the full scope of what had happened became clear. The Battle of Earth, as historians were already calling it, had been the deadliest conflict in human history. Over 5 million people had died in the fighting, including the 32,000 aboard the Exodus. But the Devourers had lost more. Their fleet had been cut in half and their reputation as unstoppable conquerors had been shattered. Word spread through the galaxy that humanity was not to be trifled with. Other species that had been marked for consumption by the Devourers began to hope that maybe they too could resist. The survivors of the battle were being called heroes, and Marcus found the attention uncomfortable. He was just a mechanic who had done what needed to be done. But people wanted to celebrate something after so much loss. They needed heroes to believe in. Marcus and Kira were discharged from the hospital and returned to Earth. Their old apartment was still there, untouched by the battle. It felt strange to be back after everything that had happened. Kira went back to school, but her friends treated her differently now. She was the girl who had survived the Exodus. The girl whose father had helped save the world. She hated the attention almost as much as Marcus did. Victor Kane offered Marcus a job again, but this time it was different. The Billionaire wanted to build a new fleet of defense ships. Humanity had learned they were not alone in the universe, and that lesson had come at a terrible price. "We need to be ready," Victor said during their meeting at his office. "The Devourers might come back, or something worse might find us. We cannot be caught unprepared again. I want you to lead the engineering team for the new ships." Marcus considered the offer carefully. The work would be important, but it would also mean long hours and time away from Kira. She had already lost so much. Could he ask her to sacrifice more? He discussed it with Kira that evening over dinner. "What do you think?" he asked. "Do you want me to take the job?" Kira was quiet for a moment, pushing food around her plate. "I think Mom would want you to do it," she finally said. She always believed in doing the right thing even when it was hard. "And this is the right thing." Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion. "You are so much like her," he said. Kira smiled sadly. "I will miss having you around all the time, but I understand. The galaxy is dangerous. We need to be ready." "When did you get so grown up?" Marcus asked. Kira shrugged. "I think it happened when I decided to stay on the Exodus instead of evacuating. That kind of decision changes you." Marcus accepted Victor's offer and began work on what would become the Guardian fleet. The project was massive, involving governments and corporations from across the solar system. Marcus insisted on certain principles from the beginning. The ships would be powerful but not aggressive. They would be designed to defend, not conquer. He had seen what happened when species became predators. He did not want humanity to become the thing they had fought against. The work was challenging and rewarding. Marcus assembled a team of brilliant engineers, many of them survivors from various battles against the Devourers. Together they designed ships that combined human ingenuity with technology, salvaged from the Devourer wrecks. One of the most important innovations came from studying how the Exodus's slipstream drive had created the subspace rupture. Marcus realized they could weaponize that effect in a controlled way. The new ships would carry rupture cannons that could tear holes in enemy vessels without destroying their own ship. It was devastating technology, and Marcus made sure there were multiple safeguards to prevent misuse. As the months passed, Earth slowly healed from the trauma of the invasion. Memorial services were held for the dead. Monuments were built to remember the sacrifice. The Exodus Monument became one of the most visited sites on Earth. It was a massive structure made of metal, salvaged from the debris field with the names of all 32,000 crew members engraved on its surface. 6 months after the battle, Marcus and Kira attended the dedication ceremony. Millions of people gathered to pay their respects. Marcus stood on the stage with other survivors and listened as the president spoke about courage and sacrifice. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he kept his words simple. "We did not want to be heroes," he said into the microphone. "We just wanted to survive. But when survival meant running or fighting, we chose to fight. Not because we were brave, but because we were human. Humanity has always been stubborn. We do not give up. We do not surrender. And we do not forget. The people we lost on the Exodus gave everything so that others could live. We honor them best by living well and by making sure their sacrifice was not in vain." The crowd erupted in applause, but Marcus felt uncomfortable with the attention. He stepped back and let others speak. Kira squeezed his hand. "Good speech, Dad," she whispered. "Thanks," Marcus replied. "I meant every word." After the ceremony, they walked through the monument reading names. Marcus found the section for his engineering crew. Patricia Stone, all of his team members, good people who had trusted him and followed him into death. "I am sorry," he whispered, touching Patricia's name. "I should have ordered you all to evacuate." A hand fell on his shoulder, and Marcus turned to see an elderly woman standing behind him. "My son was on your team," she said. "He wrote to me before the final battle. He said you were the best leader he ever had. He said he was proud to serve with you." Marcus felt tears in his eyes. "I am so sorry for your loss." "Do not be sorry," the woman said. "Be proud. My son died doing something important. He died protecting people. That is all any mother could want for her child." She hugged Marcus briefly, then walked away, leaving him standing there overwhelmed with emotion. Kira hugged him tightly. "It is okay to cry, Dad," she said. "Mom always said crying was not weakness. It was just feeling things deeply." Marcus let himself cry then, for the first time since the battle. He cried for Patricia and his team. He cried for all the people who had died. He cried for the life he and Kira had lost. And he cried for the future they still had. When he finally stopped crying, Kira was still holding him. "Feel better?" she asked. "A little," Marcus admitted. "Good," Kira said. "Because we have a future to build, and we cannot do it if we are stuck in the past." Marcus looked at his daughter and marveled at her strength. She was only 12 years old, but she had more wisdom than most adults. "You are absolutely right," he said. "Let us go home." They walked away from the monument hand in hand. Behind them, the names of the fallen caught the sunlight gleaming like stars. The dead would be remembered, but the living had work to do. Humanity had survived its first test, but Marcus knew there would be others. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but if they could face those dangers the way they had faced the Devourers, then maybe humanity had a chance after all. The slipstream drive detonated in an explosion of quantum energy that ripped a hole between normal space and the dimension beyond. Subspace and reality collided with a force that defied description. The Exodus vanished in a flash of white light, taking 300 Devourer ships with it. For a brief moment, a sphere of pure destruction existed where the battle had been. Then it collapsed, leaving nothing but debris and radiation. The sacrifice was instantaneous, but its impact would echo across the galaxy for generations. The Devourers had never encountered a species willing to destroy itself rather than surrender. They had consumed 17 civilizations, and everyone had begged for mercy at the end. But humanity was different. The remaining Devourer ships stopped their advance toward Earth. Confusion spread through their fleet as they tried to understand what had just happened. Why would prey choose death over submission? Why would a species fight when victory was impossible? The concept was alien to them. The Devourers had evolved as perfect predators. They took what they wanted and consumed what they needed. Resistance was illogical. Sacrifice was incomprehensible. But they had just witnessed both, and it changed their calculations. The human fleet, though battered and broken, pressed their attack. Destroyers that should have retreated instead charged forward. Fighters with damaged weapons made suicide runs. Stations on the verge of destruction chose to explode rather than be captured. Earth's defense coordinator sent a message to all remaining human forces. Make them remember us. Make them regret coming here. If we die today, we die on our feet, not on our knees. The word spread through the fleet and the fighting intensified. Humans who had been ready to evacuate instead grabbed weapons. Engineers became soldiers. Scientists became warriors. The Devourers found themselves facing an enemy that grew more dangerous as defeat became more certain. It was madness by their understanding, but it was also terrifying. One of their command ships broadcast a message to the rest of the fleet. This species is not prey. This species is predator. Recommend immediate withdrawal. The order was unprecedented in Devourer history, but the fleet obeyed. They turned away from Earth and began jumping to slipspace. The human forces pursued them, harassing their retreat and destroying any ship that moved too slowly. It took 6 hours for the last Devourer vessel to escape the solar system. When they were finally gone, the surviving humans could hardly believe it. They had won. Not through superior technology or greater numbers. They had won through sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The cost had been terrible. Millions dead, entire colonies destroyed, the Exodus and its 32,000 crew lost forever. But Earth survived and humanity endured. 3 days after the battle, a search and rescue team was combing through the debris field, where the Exodus had made its last stand. They were looking for salvageable technology and trying to recover bodies for proper burial. One of the rescue ships detected a faint signal coming from what looked like a piece of wreckage. The captain ordered them to investigate. As they got closer, they realized it was not wreckage at all. It was an escape pod, heavily damaged but still intact. The pod had been blown clear of the Exodus in the moment before the slipstream drive exploded. Somehow it had survived the destruction. The rescue team carefully brought the pod aboard their ship and opened it with cutting torches. Inside, they found 2 people unconscious, but alive. A man and a girl. The man had burns on his arms and a deep cut across his forehead. The girl had a broken arm and was covered in bruises. But they were breathing. The medical team rushed them to the emergency bay and began treatment. It took 2 days before the man regained consciousness. Marcus Webb opened his eyes slowly and found himself staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. His body hurt everywhere and his head felt like it was splitting apart. "Where am I?" he tried to ask, but his throat was too dry to speak. A nurse appeared beside him with water. "Drink slowly," she said. "You have been through quite an ordeal." Marcus drank and felt the water soothe his burning throat. "Where is my daughter?" he managed to say. The nurse smiled. "She is in the next room, also recovering. You both should be dead, but here you are. The doctors are calling it a miracle." Marcus closed his eyes and felt tears running down his face. Kira was alive. That was all that mattered. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his ribs. The nurse gently pushed him back down. "Rest," she said. "You have 3 broken ribs and 2nd-degree burns. You are not going anywhere for a while." "How long have I been unconscious?" Marcus asked. 3 days, the nurse replied. "You are on the rescue ship Horizon. We found you in an escape pod in the debris field." Marcus tried to remember what had happened. He recalled the slipstream drive overloading, the increasing vibration, the countdown, then nothing. "We must have been near an escape pod when the drive exploded," he said. "The blast threw us clear." The nurse nodded. "That is what the captain thinks. 1 chance in a million, but it happened. You and your daughter are the only known survivors from the Exodus." Marcus felt the weight of those words. 32,000 people, all gone except for him and Kira. The guilt was overwhelming. The nurse must have seen something in his face because she spoke quickly. "You saved us all," she said. "Everyone knows what the Exodus did." "What you did?" "The Devourers ran away. Earth is safe because of your sacrifice." A few hours later, Victor Kane entered the medical bay. His clothes were rumpled and he looked like he had not slept in days. When he saw Marcus awake, he stopped and tears began streaming down his face. "You crazy son of a gun," he said, walking to the bedside. You actually survived. I thought I had sent you to your death, Kira Marcus said. She is fine, Victor replied. Awake and asking for you. They are bringing her in now. The door opened and medical staff wheeled in another bed. Kira was sitting up with her arm in a cast. When she saw Marcus, she started crying. Dad, she said, I thought you were dead. I thought I lost you too. Marcus reached out his hand and Kira grabbed it tightly. I am here, he said. We made it. Victor wiped his eyes and pulled up a chair. I have been receiving reports from all over the system, he said. The Devourers are gone. They broadcast a warning to their other fleets. They said humans are too dangerous to consume. They called us predators, not prey. What you did on the Exodus changed everything. Did it work? Marcus asked. Did we buy enough time? Victor nodded. The evacuation ships got away. 200 million people escaped Earth before the attack. They are heading to colony worlds in other systems. Humanity will survive no matter what happens next. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling exhausted. We just did what needed to be done, he said quietly. That is what humanity does, Victor said. We survive, we adapt. We never give up. You showed the galaxy what we are made of. Marcus squeezed Kira's hand. I just wanted to protect my daughter. And you did, Victor replied. You protected her and everyone else. Rest now, you have earned it. Victor Kane led Marcus to his private office aboard the ship, and the room was more like a command center than a personal space. Holographic displays floated in the air showing stock prices and star charts and data streams that Marcus could not begin to understand. Sit down, Victor said and gestured to a chair that looked incredibly comfortable. Marcus sat and waited for the billionaire to explain what he meant about saving humanity. Victor walked to one of the displays and pulled up what looked like a sensor readout. 3 months ago, we detected something, he began. A signal from deep space. It was not random noise or natural phenomena. It was structured data, communication. Marcus leaned forward in his chair. Aliens, he asked. Yes, Victor replied. But here is the important part. The message was not intended for us. It was a warning broadcast to any civilization capable of receiving it. There is a species moving through this sector of the galaxy. They call themselves the Devourers. They consume entire civilizations and strip worlds bare of all resources. They have already destroyed 17 different alien races. We are next on their path. The weight of those words settled over Marcus like a heavy blanket. Why has this not been made public, he asked. Because it would cause mass panic, Victor said. Riots, the collapse of governments, chaos, and because we are not completely defenseless. Victor pulled up new schematics, and Marcus's eyes widened. The ship on the display was massive beyond anything he had ever imagined. This is the Exodus Initiative, Victor explained. A joint project between Earth's governments and the major colonies. It is part evacuation ship and part weapons platform. This vessel will carry 50,000 people, scientists and engineers and soldiers and families. If Earth falls, humanity will survive. But it is more than just an escape plan. The ship is armed with every weapon we have been able to design or imagine. Humanity will not go quietly into extinction. Marcus stared at the schematics and tried to comprehend the scale of what he was seeing. The ship was 5 kilometers long with rotating habitat rings and weapon systems covering every surface. What does this have to do with me, he asked, even though he was beginning to understand. I am in charge of assembling the engineering crew, Victor said. I need the best people I can find. Not the ones with the most impressive degrees or the best connections. I need people who can improvise and solve problems with whatever resources are available. People who refuse to give up when the situation seems impossible. I have been searching for months, and then tonight I watched you repair my fusion drive with spare parts and pure determination. You are exactly what we need. Marcus shook his head. I am just a mechanic, Mr. Kane. You are far more than that, and you know it, Victor replied. You are someone who does what needs to be done, regardless of the consequences. That is what this mission requires. That is what humanity needs if we are going to survive. And my daughter Marcus asked. She comes with you, Victor said. There are schools on the Exodus. There are families and communities. Everything she needs to grow up safe. If the Devourers come to Earth, she will be protected. If they do not come, she will be part of the greatest adventure in human history. Marcus stood and walked to the viewport. He looked out at Earth hanging in the darkness of space. Somewhere down there, his daughter Kira was probably sleeping in her bed. He had promised her stability after her mother died. He had promised her a normal life. This offer was the opposite of everything he had promised. But it was also survival. It was a future. How long do I have to decide, Marcus asked. "24 hours," Victor replied. "After that, we begin the general recruitment phase. I would rather have you, but we are running out of time." Marcus nodded slowly. "I need to talk to my daughter." "Of course," Victor said. "Take my ship. I will stay here and reschedule my meetings. Some things are more important than money." Marcus piloted the small shuttle back to Earth and landed at the public pad near his apartment. The sun was just coming up and he felt exhausted, but his mind was racing. How do you tell a 12-year-old girl that aliens are coming to destroy humanity? How do you ask her to leave behind everything she knows? He entered the apartment quietly and found Kira already awake and eating breakfast before school. "Hey, Dad," she said with a smile. "How was work?" "We need to talk," Marcus said. Kira's smile faded when she saw the serious expression on his face. "What is wrong?" she asked. Marcus sat down across from her and took a deep breath. "What I am about to tell you is going to sound crazy," he began. He explained everything. The signal from space, the Devourers, the Exodus Initiative, Victor Kane's offer. Kira listened without interrupting, and her expression grew more serious with each word. When Marcus finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Aliens," she finally said. "Dad, are you feeling okay?" Marcus pulled out the security badge Victor had given him, along with a tablet containing some of the declassified data. "Look at this," he said. "Really look at it." Kira took the tablet and began scrolling through the information. Her eyes grew wider as she read. She had always been good at math and science, just like her mother. She would understand what the data meant. "This is real," she whispered. "Yes," Marcus said, "and they want you to help build this ship. To help fight these things, or escape from them," Marcus replied. "Maybe both." Kira looked up at him and there were tears in her eyes. "What about school? What about my friends? What about Mom's grave?" Marcus felt his heart breaking. "I know, baby. I know this is not fair. But if we stay here and the Devourers come, there might not be anything left. And if we go and they do not come," Kira said, "then we will have left everything behind for nothing. That is the choice we have to make," Marcus said. "That is the gamble." Kira wiped her eyes and Marcus saw something change in her expression. She looked older suddenly, more mature. "Mom always said you were the smartest person she knew when it came to fixing things," she said. "If these Devourers can be stopped, you would be one of the people who could figure out how." "We have to go, Dad. Not just for us, but for everyone." Marcus pulled his daughter into a tight hug. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I am sure," Kira replied. "Besides, how many kids can say their father helped save humanity?" Marcus held her and felt both grateful and terrified. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he said softly. They stayed like that for a while, holding each other and preparing for the journey ahead. The Exodus spent the next 6 months traveling through the outer solar system, conducting what the military called shakedown cruises. These were test runs designed to identify problems before they became critical failures. Marcus and his engineering team worked constantly, fixing issues as they appeared and improving systems that did not perform as expected. The crew of 32,000 people slowly transformed from a collection of strangers into something resembling a community. People made friends, families formed bonds. Children like Kira attended school and played together. It almost felt normal except for the constant drills and the knowledge that somewhere out in the darkness the Devourers were coming. Marcus continued to refine the propulsion systems and squeeze every bit of performance from the drives. He developed new procedures for emergency repairs and trained backup teams in case his primary engineers were injured or killed. Patricia Stone praised his work constantly, and Victor Kane visited the engineering bay regularly to check on progress. The Billionaire had changed during their time on the Exodus. He was less polished now, more human. The weight of responsibility for so many lives had stripped away his corporate facade. Then the news everyone had been dreading finally arrived. The Europa colony had gone silent. 3 million people lived on Jupiter's moon, and overnight they simply stopped transmitting. Search and rescue ships found nothing. No bodies, no debris. Just empty buildings and abandoned equipment. The Devourers had arrived in the solar system. Over the next week, more colonies went dark. The outposts on Mars, the mining stations in the asteroid belt, the research facility on Titan. Each time the pattern was the same. Sudden silence followed by complete absence of life. Then the moon went dark and Earth knew the end was near. The Exodus was near Pluto conducting long-range sensor tests when they received new orders. Engage the enemy. Buy Earth time to evacuate as many people as possible. The ship turned and began accelerating back toward the inner system. Marcus stood in the engineering bay watching the tactical displays as the Devourer fleet came into sensor range. There were hundreds of ships, and each one was massive. They looked organic, almost like they had been grown rather than built. Their hulls were covered in what appeared to be armor made from biological material. They moved through space with a grace that seemed wrong for something so large. The fleet was heading straight for Earth, and there was only one ship standing in their way. All hands battle stations, the captain's voice echoed through the Exodus. This is not a drill. We are engaging hostile forces. May God have mercy on us all. Marcus felt his heart pounding as he checked and rechecked every system. The propulsion drives were running at peak efficiency. Power distribution was optimal. Backup systems were standing by. Everything that could be done had been done. Kira had been sent to one of the protected areas deep inside the ship with the other non-essential personnel. Marcus had hugged her tightly before she left. "I love you," he had said. "I love you too, Dad," she had replied. "Come back to me." The first wave of Devourer ships attacked with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Beams of energy that passed through the Exodus's shields as if they were not there. Projectiles that moved faster than anything humanity had built. The ship shuddered under the impact, and damage reports flooded in from every section. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15. Shield generators at 60%. Casualties reported in Medical Bay 3. The Exodus fought back with every weapon it had. Railguns fired streams of projectiles at relativistic speeds. Missile tubes launched warheads with nuclear and antimatter payloads. Energy weapons carved through the darkness, leaving trails of ionized particles. The crew refused to give up even as the damage mounted. Marcus and his team rerouted power from non-essential systems to shields and weapons. When one fusion reactor went offline, they brought the backup online in less than 2 minutes. When the slipstream drive took a direct hit, Marcus personally went into the damaged compartment wearing a pressure suit and made repairs while the battle raged around him. The fighting continued for hours, and both sides took terrible losses. Dozens of Devourer ships were destroyed, but more kept coming. The Exodus lost entire sections to enemy fire but kept fighting. Marcus watched the engineering readouts and saw the ship slowly being torn apart. They could not win this battle. They could only make the enemy pay for every meter of space. Then an idea came to Marcus, and it was so crazy he almost dismissed it. But desperate times called for desperate measures. He opened a comm channel to Patricia. "The slipstream drive," he said. "If we overload it deliberately, we can create a subspace rupture. It will destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers." Patricia stared at him through the video link. "You want to turn us into a bomb?" she said. "I want to hurt them," Marcus replied. "I want to show them that humanity does not surrender. Even if we lose this battle, they will remember what we did here." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Contact Victor Kane," she finally said. "If we are doing this, he needs to approve it." Marcus called the bridge and explained his plan to Victor. The billionaire listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, Victor nodded slowly. "Do it," he said. "But give the crew a chance to evacuate first. Anyone who wants to leave can take the escape pods. We have enough pods for everyone." The evacuation order went out across the ship. 15 minutes to reach the escape pods. 15 minutes to decide if you wanted to live or die. Marcus was surprised by how many people chose to stay. Engineers stayed at their posts. Gunners stayed at their weapons. Medical staff stayed with wounded who could not be moved. "We started this fight together," one young engineer said to Marcus. "We will finish it together." Marcus tried to order Kira to evacuate, but she refused. "Where you go, I go," she said firmly. "Your mother would have been so proud of you," Marcus said, pulling her into a hug. "I am proud of you too, Dad," Kira replied. The overload sequence took 10 minutes to complete, and Marcus had to manually bypass every safety system built into the slipstream drive. The quantum crystals began to glow with an unnatural light as energy levels climbed far beyond their design limits. The drive started to make a sound that was felt more than heard, a vibration that seemed to shake reality itself. The Devourers must have sensed something wrong because they began to retreat. Their ships broke off the attack and tried to move away from the Exodus. Victor Kane saw this from the bridge and smiled grimly. "Oh, no you don't," he said. He ordered the helmsman to pursue the fleeing enemy. The Exodus accelerated and chased the Devourer fleet. Marcus watched the power readings continue to climb. 150% of maximum. 200%. 250%. The slipstream drive was screaming now, and the vibrations were making it hard to stand. Rupture in 30 seconds, Marcus announced over the ship-wide comm. Around the solar system, other human ships were making their own desperate stands. Destroyers rammed Devourer vessels. Stations self-destructed to deny the enemy resources. On Earth, the evacuation continued with millions fleeing on whatever ships could fly. 15 seconds, Marcus said. Kira held his hand tightly. It has been an honor serving with all of you. 5 seconds. The slipstream drive reached critical mass and Marcus closed his eyes. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, the first Guardian-class ship completed construction and Marcus stood on the bridge during its maiden voyage. The ship was named Defiance in honor of humanity's refusal to surrender. It was smaller than the Exodus but more advanced in every way. The rupture cannons were fully operational. The shields could withstand attacks that would have destroyed older vessels, and the crew was trained to fight with the same determination that had saved Earth. Victor Kane stood beside Marcus looking out at the stars through the main viewport. "We did it," he said quietly. "We built something that can protect us." Marcus nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. "The question is whether we will use it wisely or become the very thing we fought against." Victor looked at him with understanding. "That is why I wanted you leading this project. You never forget what is at stake. You never lose sight of what matters." The ship performed flawlessly during its tests, and within 6 months, 5 more Guardian ships had been completed. Earth's defense network was taking shape, and other human colonies were building their own ships based on Marcus's designs. Humanity was no longer defenseless. But with power came responsibility, and Marcus worried constantly about how that power would be used. He attended every military strategy meeting and pushed back against aggressive tactics. "We defend," he would say. "We do not conquer." Some of the military commanders disagreed, but Victor supported Marcus, and that support mattered. Kira was growing up fast, and Marcus tried to be there for the important moments despite his busy schedule. Her 13th birthday, her first school dance, her graduation from middle school. Each milestone reminded Marcus of how precious life was and how close they had come to losing everything. Kira had developed an interest in engineering just like her father, and she spent hours in his workshop learning how things worked. She had her mother's intelligence and her father's practical skills. Marcus knew she would do great things someday. 2 years after the battle, Earth received a transmission from deep space. It was not from the Devourers, but from another alien species called the Viridians. The message was simple. "We heard what you did to the Devourers. We want to meet you." Humanity debated for weeks about how to respond. Some people wanted to ignore the message. Others wanted to prepare for war, assuming all aliens were threats. Marcus argued for a different approach. "We should talk to them," he said during a government meeting. "We might learn something. We might make allies." Fear kept us isolated, but courage could connect us to the wider galaxy. His words carried weight because of his reputation, and eventually the government agreed. A diplomatic mission would be sent to meet the Viridians. Marcus was asked to be part of the team as a technical advisor. The journey took 3 weeks using the slipstream drive, and Marcus spent the time learning everything he could about the Viridians. They were an old species that had survived several encounters with the Devourers by hiding and running. They had never fought back because they believed resistance was impossible. When they learned humanity had driven the Devourers away, they could hardly believe it. The human delegation arrived at the Viridian homeworld and were greeted with caution mixed with curiosity. The Viridians looked nothing like humans. They were tall and slender, with skin that changed colors based on their emotions. Their leader was named Chorus, and she spoke through a translation device. "You are the ones who defied the Devourers," she said. "We had to see you with our own eyes." "We are just people," Marcus replied. "We did what we had to do to survive." "Just people," Chorus repeated. "No, you are something more. You are proof that the Devourers can be beaten. That changes everything." Over the next several days, the humans and Viridians shared information. The Viridians had extensive knowledge of the galaxy, including the locations of other species and the movement patterns of various threats. Humans shared their military technology and tactical knowledge. It was the beginning of something new, an alliance based on mutual benefit and respect. Marcus found himself liking the Viridians. They were peaceful but not weak. They had survived through intelligence and adaptability. They reminded him that strength came in many forms. Before the humans left, Chorus gave Marcus a gift. It was a small device that contained the complete history of the Viridian people. "We want you to have this," she said, "so you understand what is at stake." If humanity becomes a force for protection rather than conquest, you could change the galaxy. But if you become like the Devourers, you will destroy everything good that remains. Marcus accepted the gift and promised to remember her words. When he returned to Earth, he gave the device to Kira. Study this, he told her. Learn from it. Your generation will inherit the galaxy we build. Make sure it is one worth living in. 3 years after the battle, Marcus was offered a position on the newly formed Galactic Defense Council. The council was a joint organization made up of humans and the 3 alien species that had agreed to work together. Their mission was to protect peaceful civilizations from threats like the Devourers. Marcus accepted the position and moved to the council headquarters on a neutral space station. Kira came with him and enrolled in the station's academy. She was 16 now and more confident than ever. She had decided to follow in her father's footsteps and become an engineer. Marcus could not have been prouder. The work on the council was challenging but rewarding. Marcus helped design defense systems for vulnerable worlds. He trained engineers from different species. He pushed for peaceful solutions whenever possible, but never hesitated to authorize force when necessary. The Devourers attempted several more invasions over the years, but each time they were turned back by the growing alliance. They learned to avoid human space entirely, and other predator species began to think twice before attacking. Humanity's reputation spread across the galaxy. They were warriors when needed, but builders by preference. They defended the weak and stood up to bullies. It was exactly the legacy Marcus had hoped for. On the 5th anniversary of the Battle of Earth, Marcus returned to the Exodus Monument with Kira, who was now 17. They walked through the memorial together, reading familiar names and remembering fallen friends. "Do you ever regret it?" Kira asked. "Going on the Exodus, staying when you could have evacuated?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I regret the loss," he said. "I regret that so many good people died, but I do not regret fighting. I do not regret standing up when it mattered. Your mother always said the measure of a person was not what they did when things were easy, but what they did when things were hard. We were tested and we did not break." "That is enough." Kira nodded and leaned against him. "I am proud of you, Dad. I am proud of us." Marcus put his arm around her. "I am proud of you too. You took an impossible situation and found strength I did not know existed. You are going to do amazing things." They stayed at the monument until the sun set. Then they walked home together, talking about the future. The past could not be changed, but the future was still being written. And if Marcus had learned anything from his journey from mechanic to hero, it was that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they refused to give up. That lesson had saved humanity once. He hoped it would continue to guide them for generations to come. 10 years after the Battle of Earth, Marcus Webb stood in his office on the Galactic Defense Council station, looking at a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Green dots represented allied species, yellow dots showed neutral civilizations, red dots marked known threats. The map looked better than it had 5 years ago. The alliance had grown to include 12 different species, and the red dots were becoming less frequent. Humanity had helped establish trade routes and defense networks that protected billions of lives. The scared refugees who had fled Earth during the invasion were now returning and bringing with them new ideas and perspectives learned from living among the stars. Kira entered the office carrying 2 cups of coffee. She was 22 now and worked as a senior engineer on the council's technical staff. She had graduated top of her class and turned down multiple job offers to work alongside her father. "Still looking at maps?" she asked, handing him a cup. "Still trying to solve the galaxy's problems," Marcus replied with a smile. "Someone has to." Kira sat down in the chair across from his desk. "I heard the council is sending a delegation to make contact with the Seraphim. That should be interesting." The Seraphim were a mysterious species that lived in the galactic core. They had technology far beyond anything humans or their allies possessed, but they rarely interacted with other civilizations. Recent signals suggested they might be willing to open diplomatic relations, and the council wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. "I have been asked to lead the delegation," Marcus said. "Victor thinks my experience with the Viridians makes me the right choice." "Are you going to accept?" Kira asked. "I think I have to," Marcus replied. "If the Seraphim join the Alliance, we would have access to technology that could change everything. But I am getting too old for this." "Too old?" Kira laughed. "Dad, you are only 43. "That is ancient," Marcus said, but he was smiling. Besides, I was thinking maybe it is time for a younger generation to take over. Someone smart and capable, who understands both engineering and diplomacy. Kira raised an eyebrow. Are you asking me to join the delegation? I am asking you to lead it with me, Marcus said. This is your galaxy now. You should be part of shaping it. Kira was quiet for a moment, clearly moved by the offer. I would be honored, she finally said. When do we leave? 2 weeks, Marcus replied. That gives us time to prepare and say goodbye to Earth. Victor wants to see us before we go anyway. He says he has something important to discuss. They spent the next 2 weeks preparing for the mission and studying everything known about the Seraphim. When they returned to Earth, Victor Kane greeted them at his office. The billionaire was 58 now, and his hair had gone gray, but his eyes still held the same sharp intelligence Marcus remembered from their first meeting. Come in, he said warmly. It has been too long. The three of them sat in comfortable chairs and caught up on each other's lives. Victor had stepped back from day-to-day operations of his companies to focus on philanthropic work. He was funding schools and hospitals across human space and helping colonies rebuild after the Devourer attacks. I wanted to see you before you left for the Seraphim mission, Victor said. But I also wanted to tell you something I should have said years ago. Thank you. For what, Marcus asked. For everything, Victor replied. That night when my ship broke down, I was just another wealthy man worried about a business deal. Then I met you, and you showed me what really mattered. You taught me that heroism was not about money or power. It was about doing what needed to be done no matter the cost. I have tried to live up to that example every day since. Marcus felt embarrassed by the praise. I was just a mechanic trying to provide for my daughter, he said. You were far more than that, Victor replied. You still are. You changed my life. You changed humanity's future. I will never forget that. The mission to the Seraphim homeworld took 6 weeks using the most advanced slipstream drive ever built. Marcus and Kira spent the journey reviewing protocols and getting to know the rest of the delegation. When they finally arrived in the galactic core, the sight took their breath away. Billions of stars were packed so closely together that the sky blazed with constant light. The Seraphim homeworld orbited a blue giant star and was protected by technology that made human shields look primitive. The delegation was escorted to the surface by Seraphim vessels and greeted by their leader known as the Architect. The Architect was a being of pure energy, contained within a crystalline form. Communication happened through direct thought transfer, which was disorienting at first, but Marcus adapted quickly. Why do you seek alliance with us? The Architect asked. Because together we can do more than apart, Marcus replied. Your people have knowledge we lack. We have determination you may have forgotten. The galaxy is dangerous and cooperation makes us all stronger. The Architect studied Marcus for what felt like an eternity. You are the one who destroyed the Exodus to defeat the Devourers. Yes, Marcus said. That action should have killed you. Yet here you stand. How? Luck, Marcus replied honestly. Or maybe the universe was not done with me yet. The Architect made a sound like crystalline laughter. We have watched humanity for 10 years. You are young and rash, but you possess something rare. Hope. Most species lose hope when they encounter the darkness. You found hope in the darkest moment and used it as a weapon. That interests us. Over the next several days, Marcus and Kira met with various Seraphim leaders. They shared human history and learned about Seraphim technology. The two civilizations were vastly different, but they found common ground in their desire to protect life and push back against chaos. The Seraphim agreed to join the alliance and share some of their knowledge. In return, humans would help defend Seraphim interests in the outer galaxy. It was a historic agreement, and Marcus knew it would change everything. On their last night on the Seraphim homeworld, Marcus and Kira stood on a balcony looking at the star-filled sky. What do you think Mom would say if she could see us now? Kira asked. I think she would say we did good, Marcus replied. We survived. We helped others survive. We made the galaxy a little bit better. That was always enough for her. They returned to Earth as heroes once again, but Marcus was tired of the attention. He had spent 10 years in the spotlight, and he wanted something simpler. He submitted his retirement from the Galactic Defense Council and recommended Kira as his replacement. The council agreed immediately. At 22, Kira Webb became the youngest person ever to serve on the council, and she proved herself worthy of the position within months. Marcus moved back to his old apartment and took a job as a teacher at a technical school. He spent his days teaching young people how to fix engines and solve problems. It was humble work, but it made him happy. He was finally just a mechanic again, and that was exactly what he wanted. Kira visited often, and they would have dinner together and talk about her work. She was accomplishing amazing things, and Marcus could not have been prouder. One evening, 5 years after his retirement, Marcus sat on his balcony watching the sunset. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, from a simple mechanic fixing a billionaire's ship to a hero who helped save humanity. It seemed impossible, but it had happened. He thought about all the people he had lost. His wife, Patricia Stone, the crew of the Exodus. Their sacrifice had bought humanity a future, and that future was bright. The Devourers were gone. The Alliance was strong. Peace was spreading across the galaxy. It was everything they had fought for. Marcus closed his eyes and smiled. He had lived a good life. He had raised an amazing daughter. He had made a difference. That was more than most people could say. When Kira asked him years later if he had any regrets, Marcus thought carefully before answering. "I regret the loss," he said. "I regret that achieving peace required so much sacrifice. But I do not regret fighting. I do not regret standing up when it mattered. We did what humans do best. We survived. And in surviving, we showed the galaxy what we were made of. That legacy will outlive us all." And it did. The night air was cold at Denver International Spaceport, and Marcus Webb pulled his jacket tighter around his body as he walked across the empty hangar. It was 3 a.m, and he was the only mechanic on duty because his supervisor had called in sick and nobody else wanted to work the graveyard shift. Marcus did not mind the quiet hours because it gave him time to think and work without interruption. He had been working at this spaceport for 5 years now, ever since he left the Navy, and came back home to take care of his daughter. The comm system crackled to life and startled him from his thoughts. A pilot's voice came through, urgent and stressed. "Emergency landing requested on pad 7. Primary fusion coupling failure. Need immediate assistance." Marcus grabbed his toolkit and diagnostic tablet, then jogged toward the landing pad. He could see the ship coming in now, and it was beautiful. The vessel was a Titan-class executive cruiser, and Marcus knew these ships cost more money than he would ever see in his lifetime. The ship landed with precision despite the emergency, and Marcus approached as soon as the engines powered down. The main hatch opened, and a woman in an expensive business suit stepped out. She looked at Marcus, and her eyes swept over his worn coveralls and the grease stains on his hands. "Are you the mechanic?" she asked, and there was doubt in her voice. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied. "Marcus Webb. What seems to be the problem?" The woman hesitated for just a moment before speaking. "We have a critical fusion drive malfunction. My employer needs to reach Alpha Centauri station within 18 hours for an extremely important business meeting. If we do not arrive on time, he stands to lose billions of credits." Marcus nodded and tapped his tablet to access the ship's external diagnostics. The readings confirmed what the pilot had said. The fusion coupling was failing, and if it went completely, the ship would be dead in space. "May I come aboard?" he asked. The woman stepped aside, and Marcus climbed into the ship. The interior was more luxurious than anything he had ever seen. Real wood paneling covered the walls, and the seats were made of genuine leather. The technology was so advanced it made the equipment at his station look ancient. But Marcus was not there to admire the dew core. He made his way to the engine compartment and immediately saw the problem. The quantum resonance chamber was misaligned, and this was causing the fusion plasma to become unstable. It was a delicate repair that would require both precision and experience. Marcus had worked on similar systems during his time in the Navy, but never on a ship this expensive. "How long?" a deep voice said behind him. Marcus turned and saw a tall man standing in the doorway. He wore silk pajamas and a robe that probably cost more than Marcus earned in 3 months. His skin was dark like Marcus's own, and his eyes were sharp and intelligent. "You must be the owner," Marcus said. "Victor Kane," the man replied. "And you are?" "Marcus Webb, sir. I can have this fixed in about 6 hours if I can source the correct replacement parts from the station inventory." Victor's expression hardened. 6 hours? We do not have 6 hours." "Then you do not have a ship, sir," Marcus said calmly. "This is not something you can rush. One mistake and your fusion core could breach. You would be looking at a complete engine rebuild, assuming you survived the explosion." The two men stared at each other for a long moment. Marcus had learned during his years in the Navy not to be intimidated by rank or wealth. In space, the laws of physics were the only authority that mattered, and those laws did not care how much money you had. Finally, Victor nodded. "Do what you need to do." Marcus got to work immediately. He contacted the station's parts department and ordered the components he needed. While he waited for the parts to arrive, he began the careful process of shutting down the fusion drive and stabilizing the remaining systems. Victor Kane watched from the doorway and seemed fascinated by what he was seeing. "Where did you learn to work on Titan-class drives?" he asked. "Navy," Marcus replied without looking up from his work. "I served 8 years on the carrier Hamilton as a propulsion specialist." "Why did you leave?" "I wanted to come home," Marcus said. "My family needed me." Victor nodded slowly as if he understood something about sacrifice. The parts arrived within an hour and Marcus began the delicate work of replacing the damaged components and realigning the quantum resonance chamber. His hands moved with practiced precision as he made microscopic adjustments to the field generators. Every movement had to be exact because even the smallest error could cause a catastrophic failure. Marcus worked steadily for the next 3 hours and his focus never wavered. He had done this kind of work 1,000 times before, and his muscle memory guided him through the complex procedure. Finally, he made the last adjustment and the quantum resonance chamber hummed to life. The readings on his tablet showed perfect alignment and the fusion drive began its startup sequence. "Try it now," Marcus called to the pilot. The engines responded immediately, and their power output exceeded the factory specifications. Victor stepped forward and there was admiration in his eyes. "You did it," he said. "And in 4 hours, not 6. Marcus shrugged and wiped his hands on a rag. "The parts arrived faster than I expected." "What do I owe you?" Victor asked. "Standard emergency repair rate," Marcus replied. "The station will send you a bill." Victor pulled out his personal tablet and studied Marcus for a moment. "The standard rate does not cover genius. What is your annual salary?" Marcus frowned. "Why does that matter?" "Because I want to offer you a job," Victor said. "I need someone who can think under pressure. Someone who does not let impossible situations intimidate them. Someone exactly like you." Marcus shook his head. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Kane, but I am happy where I am." "Are you?" Victor asked. "Working night shifts in a half-empty station fixing ships for people who barely see you as human." The words stung because they were true, but Marcus had his reasons for staying. "I have a daughter," he said quietly. "She is 12 years old. Her mother passed away 3 years ago. This job gives me stability and health benefits and a schedule that lets me be there for Kira when she needs me. I cannot just walk away from that for some job offer from a stranger." Victor was silent for a moment and then he smiled. "What if I told you I could offer you all of that and more? What if I told you I need someone exactly like you for something far more important than fixing my personal ship?" Marcus looked at the billionaire skeptically. "I would say you are about to miss your important business meeting, Mr. Kane." Victor laughed and it was a genuine sound. "The meeting can wait. This is more important. Marcus Webb, how would you like to help save humanity?"